Please welcome to stage Dr. LaVar J. Charleston.
I feel like this is an award show or a talk show or something. This is great. Listen, good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of your energetic faces here for day 2 of the 2023 Diversity Forum. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, my name is LaVar Charleston. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Vice Provost, and Chief Diversity Officer here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is hosting this Diversity Forum, Bridging the Divide, Realizing Belonging While Engaging in Difference. For those who did join us yesterday, welcome back. I hope you found day 1 sessions as rewarding as I did, filled with so many knowledgeable and thought-provoking speakers and participants. I also hope you enjoyed last night's reception and were able to make some more meaningful connections. Who all were here yesterday? Oh, that's like almost everybody. So it's really great to see you here. So terrific to see you all back with us today. And who's here for the first time today? All right, where were you yesterday? No, I'm just kidding. So, but I used to do this in my classes. I'd love to hear some thoughts. If you have one word to describe the impact of yesterday's session, something that moved you, let's just yell it out real quick. I just want to hear from a couple people to hear a one-word description of something you gained from yesterday. Community. Students. Humility. Powerful. Challenging. Couple more. Co-author. Yes, co-conspirator too. I remember that one too. I love that one. Other folks. Inspirational. That is so awesome. I'm so happy. I mean, this is about gaining information and knowledge and taking it to your working, living, and learning environments and making some positive change in those spaces. So I'm so happy to hear that so many of you had some positive takeaways. Before I begin, I want to remind you that Meaningful Marks is providing visual note-taking. I saw lots of folks. How many got a chance to see some of the graphic representations of yesterday? How powerful was that, right? So Meaningful Marks is with us for the second year in a row, and we hope we'll keep her here forever. She's great. So you could take, for those who are virtual, in the next couple days, those graphic representations will be online, so you will be able to view those as well. So make sure you check that out. Excuse me. Moving ahead, today's sessions will include a focus on arts and activism, a favorite topic of mine. And for those who know me, art is kind of what feeds my soul. So I do this academic work, and sometimes the work that we do, we can get lost in that, and we can find ourselves through artistic expression in many different ways. So I'm excited to hear of that panel too. And so we'll also have other exciting speakers and sessions and more opportunities to engage in some meaningful discussion. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our first presenter and dear colleague of mine, Dr. Carolee Dodge Francis, who will offer the Native Nations tribute. Dr. Dodge Francis is a social behavioral researcher and a member of the Oneida Nation. In 2022, she became the first Native woman to chair a department at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dr. Dodge Francis chairs the Department of Civil Society and Community Studies right here on campus and is a professor of ecology and human well-being. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dodge Francis.
Obviously, I'm a little shorter. Poso Meep, Netanawe Makanuk. Good morning, my relatives. Nehanasu Tuki, Anet Ewisian. My native name is Nehanasu Tuki, meaning little woman. Kinship as a verb. Something that is really near and dear to me. I grew up on the Menominee Reservation, thus speaking Menominee versus Oneida, and was one of the first generations in my family not to attend boarding school or government school. My language is sketchy and broken. My family thought it was best to try to protect us and hope that our assimilation within the school system would be easier. My koko and my father met with severe repercussions when they spoke their language. I try to be a constant learner, especially since language revitalization across the Wisconsin tribal communities and through the American Indian and Indigenous Studies program here at UW are wonderful outlets for learning. The gentleman in the photo, second from the end with a cap on, is Richard R. Dodge. This is his logging crew, which sometimes doubled as babysitters for us too. The over 300 square miles of forest was my playground, and what's not to love about playing in the woods? He would be 96 years old today. He enlisted in the Marines way before he was supposed to, and he fought in World War II as part of the Code Talker contingency, as there were many tribes involved, including Ho-Chunk, Oneida, and Menominees. My understanding of kinship began at an early age when my father spoke of being a good relative and in good relationships with all things animate and inanimate. Kinship as an indigenous practice goes beyond the immediate family and that of just blood relationships, but also includes our homelands. These territories are the lands my heart calls home. My father instilled upon us how to take care of our homelands and not to take more than we need, and share what we take with others, and give thanks to the Creator for these amazing gifts. I constantly reflect upon the meaning of Indigenous kinship and how I might traverse the world structures of dominant ideology and weave our culture, homelands, and teachings on a daily basis. As a first-generation college student, my journey was not without difficulties. Many times my parents could not assist me with college life. My friends didn't often understand why I was in college. And the college students and faculty most definitely did not reflect my identity or myself. I found kinship, though, with other Native students from different tribes. And I had mentors who provided their expertise and listened when I was stressed out and worried about finishing my degree, and some of you may relate. However, I did finish a bachelor's degree and then 2 more degrees. I was on a roll that would propel me into the world of science and health. I have witnessed how disease has affected health and well-being of our people. As a health educator on the streets of Minneapolis in the early 80s and at the beginning of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, I quickly learned a deeper understanding of kinship as relationships and kinship of family, tribal members, and healthcare systems were gravely affected by the fears of this disease. The role of kinship came into play in addressing this opportunistic disease as tribes shared information along with prevention and education strategies. While COVID-19 took too many of our loved ones, the Wisconsin tribes mobilized quickly to provide vaccinations to tribal members, but also to others within the community and surrounding areas across Wisconsin. We continuously share, improve, and strive for healthy well-being across all our people. I found that perhaps my single most effective gift I could provide to students was that of mentorship. I've had the honor and the pleasure of mentoring and working alongside Native American Indian students from across the nation, spanning from high school to graduate school, in the areas of public health, STEM research, Indigenous evaluation. Providing student mentorship brings me such joy in creating kinship through our work in academia and in collaboration with communities. Students are providing gifts of knowledge and expertise that creates and makes such incredible differences for our people and tribal communities. Kinship as a verb. I believe we must, and we can, prioritize the inclusion of traditionally underrepresented groups in advancing kinship as an obligation to be good relatives, thus bridging the divide and creating a model of praxis that transforms and sustains an approach to adopting a kinship system that embraces resiliency, self-determination, understandings of indigenous knowledge, and cultural humility. Wawanan, thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Dodge Francis. Please, everyone, let's give her one more round of applause. Kinship is so important, and that's why we are all here today. And so now it's my honor to introduce Dr. Charles Isbell, who just this summer became UW-Madison's I demoted him. He's the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. And he's joined us for his very first diversity forum, so we're excited to have him here, and we're super excited for his leadership at this institution. Dr. Isbell comes to us from Georgia Tech, where he was on faculty there for 21 years, and as Dean of their College of Computing for the past 4 years. In his time there, he led an effort to transform the curriculum and championed a major initiative to broaden participation in computer and data sciences. Dr. Isbell received his bachelor's degree from Georgia Tech and his PhD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, more affectionately known as MIT. His research interests are varied, but the unifying theme has been using machine learning to build autonomous agents that engage directly with humans. His work has been featured in popular press, congressional testimony, and several technical collections. Dr. Isbell is a fellow of the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence and the Association of Computing Machinery, and serves as an elected member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And he is also an avid collector of comics. He has 22,000 of them. He's a talented singer. And he's a big fan of bacon, chocolate, and cheese. And so our division sought to win him over very quickly, so we leave chocolate out on the desk, and so when he walks by, he can just grab a bunch and keep moving. So it all makes him a perfect fit for leadership here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I know for a fact that he has a very important meeting that I think is going on now. And so I'm very grateful that he has prioritized coming to spend a few moments to speak with us today. Dr. Charles Isbell? Provost Isbell.
So good morning, how are y'all doing? Good morning, how are y'all doing? Thank you so much for having me here. Before I get started, I do want to point out, at no point did I ever claim that I was a talented singer. And I believe that is LaVar making editorial comments, because he himself, as for those of you who don't know, fronts a band where he sings. And I believe next time he is up here, you should demand, absolutely demand, that he sing a song of some sort. Doesn't matter what it is, just make him do it, and then he'll know better than to ever introduce me like that again. Okay. So, as you can tell by both my accent and the fact that I used y'all, I come from the South. And the tradition for people from the South is to tell a story. So I don't have a lot of time to be here today. We have a wonderful speaker who's coming up to talk, and a very full agenda, but I wanted to take just a moment to share a little story, an experience that I had that I think bears on the purpose of this forum. So Many years ago, I was a part of an executive leadership program that was put on by the University System of Georgia. They took 2 people from each of the universities. There were 32 of them at the time, so they took 64 people. This was a thing that was supposed to last over an entire year. They wanted us to work on projects that would move forward higher ed and have some impact on the university so that we would learn things and take it back to our home institutions. Before it all began, at the beginning of the academic year, they had us take a bunch of tests and assessments, some personality things, some leadership style. They just did a whole bunch of stuff. And then they used that information, though we didn't know it at the time, to put us into little project teams, to have us work together on projects over 8 or 9 months. So I was put together with the team. It was an excellent team, people from all over the great state. We worked on a bunch of interesting things together, and we did some good things. I will admit, at the time and later, that while I enjoyed the stuff that we were able to do with my colleagues, I did find more than one of them somewhat irritating because they were, and that's fine. So we were halfway through this program. I think it was month 4 or 5. We were all meeting together as we did once a month up in Athens, Georgia. And they brought us together and they said, we're going to do something a little different for this meeting today. What we're going to do is we're going to divide you up into different groups and have you work on different kind of problems. So they had us all stand up in the center of the room much like this one, a little smaller, all 64 of us in the middle of the room, and they asked 11 questions. Depending upon your answer, you took a step forward, you took a step back, you went to the left, you went to the right. After those 11 questions, we were in 4 completely distinct groups. It was kind of interesting. So they asked everyone in the group, each of those groups, to sort of get together and talk amongst themselves. And then they gave us an assignment. This was the assignment, exactly. Individually, sit down, you have a piece of paper, you have 7 minutes to write about leaf. Someone raised their hand and they said, what do you mean, write about leaf? You have 7 minutes to write about leaf. You mean like a leaf on a tree? You have 6 minutes to write about leaf. Okay, so we decided, fine. So we all started writing about leaf. At the end of those 7 minutes, they said, we want you to get together, we want you to compare notes, we want you to pick something from each of you from that group and share it with everyone else. So in my group, it was interesting. We weren't allowed to talk about this while we were doing our 7 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever. Every single person in my group wrote the same thing. They wrote down all the things you could possibly mean by leaf. Turns out there's a lot. There's a leaf on a tree, it was obvious. These tables, some of them have leaves. There's leaves of paper. There's Leif Erikson. There's some reference to leaf that has to do with comedies from the Shakespearean era. I didn't understand it then, I don't understand it now. But there's lots of things you do, and a bunch of people did that. About a third of us, me included, then went on to say, this is what I've decided you mean by leaf, and I'm going to talk about that. And we shared that with the group. This group over here, every single one of them talked about what a leaf felt like. Its texture, its color, bark on tree. Every single one of them talked about the sensation of touching a leaf or touching a tree or being in a forest. Kind of interesting. This other group over here, something about bicycles. I didn't understand it, I don't understand it now. I don't know what it really means. This group way over here, every single one of them, without fail, talked about what it felt like to be a leaf, to be the last leaf on a tree, to fall down and finally join your colleagues, your brothers and sisters on the ground at the end of fall, become compost and be one with the earth so that the new tree could arise. When I heard that, and I saw several of the people I've been working with were in that group, that's when I understood. So they had us do this. They had us do a whole bunch of other exercises. Talk about things you liked about meetings, things you didn't like about meetings, things that were exciting. How do you know that you were successful? What are the things that got in the way? And everybody talked, and we did all these things. I'd be more than happy to share some of the details with you, but it was just a fun time. At the end of it, our facilitator came out, and he said, well, we're almost done for the day, but I want to share something with you. Every time we've been meeting, we've had a little sound meter, and we've been recording decibels, sounds, how you are working together. Here's what you sounded like the first 4 times that we met. And he showed it to us. It was complete silence. He said, here's what you sounded like today. And it was loud. There was laughter. I mean, in my own group, I didn't know any of these people. We were completing each other's sentences. We had shared all kinds of things that we had done growing up. Almost everyone in my group was somehow related to IT or computer science. I don't know how that worked out. That's sort of how it was. It was great. And he told us, what have you learned from this? What does this actually mean? What I got from it was two things that I've tried to carry with me through the decades that have followed since. One was something we all know. When you put a bunch of people together who all think the same, have had the same experiences, when you lack diversity, you don't come up with interesting answers and ideas because everyone thinks the same. Those other groups that they had put together, they had purposely put us together with people who didn't think like us, who didn't have the same experience, who had different leadership styles. And there was a reason why we came up with better ideas, why we came up with interesting insights, things that we could share with others that we could take back to our home institutions. But you all know this. You all know that diversity brings strength. You all know that and the literature is replete with this, you all know that if you bring people together from a variety of backgrounds, better things happen. I don't have to convince you of that. And I knew that going in. But the second thing that I didn't realize, that I knew intellectually but I didn't appreciate, was that when you put groups of people together who know one another, they have a great time. They're loud. They laugh. They share stories. They complete each other's sentences even after only knowing each other for 10 minutes. When you put people together who come from different backgrounds, who have different experiences, it's not always the same. But that's okay. What it tells us, what I took from that and what I want to say, is it takes work. In order to get the greatness that comes from groups of people from different experiences, you have to work at it. So as leaders, you have to know that when you put teams together, that you have to help them to thrive. You have to help them to succeed by putting in the work that allows them to leverage one another's experiences. When you're in the group and you're talking, you have to remember that the work you have to do is to listen and to acknowledge the experiences of others so that you can learn from one another to produce that great outcome. You have to be willing to feel a sense of belonging even through difference. I think what excites me about this forum, what excites me about this place and the things that I've seen, the things that I've been able to participate in, is that you are a group of people who are willing to put in the work, who are willing to not only learn because it's worth learning, but also willing to do the things that follow. You've heard great things yesterday, you will hear great things today. These are tools that you'll be able to take with you, and I know that you will, back to where you are, so that you can do the work that will allow us all to move forward. That's why these sorts of forums are important. That's why these kinds of conversations matter. Not just because they make us feel good or because they check some box somewhere, but they give us the ability to do better than we would have done otherwise if we are willing to do the work. So as LaVar pointed out, I'm late for another meeting, but I wanted to stop by, and I didn't want to do it just so that I could tell you my story or just so that I could say hi, but because I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say thank you for not just participating in this, but thank you for doing the work that will move us on forward and that will make all of us better. Thank you so much for what you do, and on Wisconsin.
You know, super grateful. Thank you, Provost Isbell, and again, welcome to your first Diversity Forum. It has been a joy. You know, I've been in and or around campus almost 20 years, 18 years since 2005, right? And so it's always good to have different energy, new energy come into the place. And I'll just tell you, it's been a joy to brain wrestle with Provost Isbell, and I think there are great things to come for this institution.